And we are backstage with the one and only George Thorogood. George, thanks so much for joining us today, man.
Bad to the bone. You know me? Bad to the bone, you know me?
It's because of that song and that video, you introduced millions of people to the blues, as well as to this guy named Bo Diddley. I mean, me included. So again, that alone, we can't thank you enough, man.
Well, thank you. That's quite a compliment. Bo Diddley is he's kind of the guy I looked at. You know, I kind of checked his thing out and started getting heavy into Bo in the 60s, and I always looked at Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry as probably the two most important guitarist or personalities ever. And I'm going to tell you why, Derrick. Because during the war, World War II and after the war, with all due respect to Muddy Waters, he was not the first to pick up an electric guitar and play blues on electric guitar. Howlin' Wolf was doing it in the 30s, and John Lee Hooker was doing it in like 1941 up in Detroit. So I always believe that Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Elmore James, John, they were like the first rock bands, really. Because at that time, the blues critics were really down on them because they were, taking the blues and jazzing up and swinging it. They were right around the corner on the horizon of rock and roll. And Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry took the blues. And Bo Diddley was the first that I know of, the first black rocker playing on the Ed Sullivan Show. And Chuck Berry was the first white cat to get on Bandstand. So they introduced, when they were just revved it up, Chuck revved it up and put these great lyrics to it. So those guys were the link. They were the link of taking it out of the bars, formulating this great sound, and getting it to the masses, so to speak, and through the medium of television and radio and all that. And they called it rock and roll. Well, you're a jazz guy, and as you know, the saying rock and roll back in the old days was a sexual come-on, that ladies would go up to jazz musicians and say, "I want to rock and roll with you." That meant the thing. And so Chuck Berry was on Bandstand doing Roll Over Beethoven, and he'd do that duck walk, and his eyebrows would go up and down and say, "She's got a crazy part, and you ought to see him reeling rock." Now, he wasn't talking about music. He was talking about something else, and the whole world flipped out. But those two cats were the ones who brought it home. I really hold them responsible. So, how to get Bo Diddley into the video at Bad to the Bone? Because what is Bad to the Bone but Bo Diddley? Sounds like something he would do. Yeah. It's perfect for him.
It's amazing. Speaking with George Thorogood here on Jazz 90.1. Follow up on Bo Diddley. I was thinking yourself, Buddy Holly, the early Rolling Stones, all used Bo Diddley. I mean, the shave and a haircut. What was it about that sound and his style that just made people really want to gravitate toward it, do you think?
Because I'll tell you, Derrick, it's natural. It's part of our culture. I talked to Bo Diddley at great length, and I really pinned him down. I wouldn't let him leave until he told me the real story. When he came to Chicago, he boxed for a while. He actually boxed, and he was an accomplished vocalist, opera type singing, that he could really get up there. And supposedly he was very adept at handling a violin, not a fiddle like concert violinist. But his idols were Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. But he couldn't play the blues. He just couldn't get behind. He had real thick fingers, and he wanted to do that, and he really wanted to get with chess and didn't know how to do it. And he said every day he'd sit on this stoop in Chicago and see these little girls, about 11, 12 years old, playing jump rope. And they were playing jump rope. And Bo would just sit and watch them. And these girls would be going, patty cake, baker's man. Make me a cake as fast as you can. And he was like, bum, 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 bum. It's already in our culture. It's already there. And Bo took it, and he was a real insecure guy, real shy, and the kids teased him because Bo tried to act real tough, and a bully in Chicago was called a Bo Diddley. And these little girls would tease him and say, "You're nothing but a Bo Diddley," like a bully hot full of air. And he goes, bum, 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 Bo Diddley. Got it? And he thought it would be a great children's song for kids. And in a way, he was right, because it was the kids that picked up on rock and roll. And anybody over 18 didn't listen to it. In those days, anyway. So he had his finger on something that is still going. So I said, "You're never going to get rid of that Bo Diddley beat." Did you ever hear the song Hush by Deep Purple?
Yeah.
When they do the organ part?
Yeah.
Hush, hush. Did you ever hear the organ part in the middle of Magic Carpet Ride when they take off?
Yeah.
What is it?
Same
What is Magic Bus by The Who? See? You can't escape Bo Diddley. As soon as I hit that Bo Diddley, so I said, I'm not going to write any songs. I'm just going to do a Bo Diddley song. Why? Just cut to the chase. Yeah. And no matter who they are, if they're 8 years old or 80 years old, you get that Bo Diddley thing going, and it's unstoppable. That's what he had. And he got with me at a blues festival, and we shared the same trailer. I said, Bo, I don't know why they want me to play at these blues festivals. I can't play blues. And Bo goes, neither can I.
Speaking with George Thorogood here on Jazz 90.1. That said, George, you've been doing this for a couple years, getting into it, playing live, actually closing over 40 doing it. For you, how do you get the energy level up? Because, it's great music, but for you, because you've been doing it for such a long time, how do you keep that energy level up and the freshness in the music?
Keep going?
Yeah.
Derrick, I've always appreciated the value of a good night's sleep. I saw Chuck Berry play in his 40s, his 50s, his 60s. That guy was built like a player in the NBA. Yeah. He took care of himself. Now, you can say what you want, but from the neck down, Mick Jagger is built like a 19-year-old cheerleader. So it's the only way you're going to survive. I got a hold of Chuck one time, and I said, I'm going to ask him. I know a million people ask him this, but I'm going to get him, and I'm going to see what he says. And I said, Chuck, if you had to pick one thing, is that the one thing that's the key to success, what is it? And he goes, George, you got to eat right. Huh? It's pretty simple. And those cats, so I watched them. I said, well, this guy knows how to live. And look how good he did. And Mick Jagger kind of followed that. And Mick takes real good care of himself. The guy weighs exactly what he said when I first saw him on Shindig. That was 65. Yeah. He's the same guy. Amazing.
We're speaking with George Thorogood here on Jazz 90.1, getting ready to close out the 2014 Xerox Rochester International Jazz Festival. George, again, we can't thank you enough. Millions of people have picked up the guitar because of watching you play and hearing you play. And again, we can't thank you enough for really taking jazz, blues, and for that matter, music further, man.
The pleasure's mine, Derrick. Believe me.